Users of Reddit, what dark secret are you hiding from everyone? I witnessed my fiance's suicide last year. I moved states afterwards and started a new life. My co-workers, clients, and new friends call me the sunshine of whatever room I walk into, but I'm completely dead inside. Even though I choose to fake it, I resent them for not seeing how fucked up I am. Damn, I can't imagine being in your situation. I know you feel fucked up, but I hope you realize you're important too. I have a secret fantasy life, populated with imaginary friends. It started in grade school, and I have continued all my life. I am in my 50s now, and still prefer to be alone in my imaginary world instead of being with family or friends. I can't even tell my psychiatrist because I am afraid he will lock me up or give me drugs to make it all stop. This sounds like maladaptive daydreaming. It's not dangerous or a sign of needing to be locked up. All the best to you. I've done this since I can remember as well. I'm now 42. I first heard about maladaptive daydreaming a little over a year ago. It was a relief to find out I wasn't crazy nor alone. But it's always been my big secret. My stepdad tried to kill me when I was little. TW for domestic violence and language. My stepdad was a grade A asshole. He was in my life from the beginning, after my bio dad up and left, till I was about 13 to 14. He was an abusive, alcoholic, jobless dickwad who constantly physically and verbally abused both my mum and I. On multiple occasions either my mom or I called the cops and watched them drag the sorry sack of shit out the house and throw him in jail for a couple of days. They were, sadly, the happiest days of my childhood. When I was little I can remember countless times where I had gotten into physical fights with the man, resulting in black eyes, cuts, bruises, the works. I won't go into detail any further, since it's kinda hard to talk about, but I will say this. I never told anyone about this. This is the first time I've gotten it down in writing or out in the open at all. When I was little, 5 to 6 years old, I'd say, I lived with my mom and stepdad in my stepdad's parents' attic. My mom frequently went out during the day for work, and didn't come home till late evening or night. Well, one day, after my parents had a pretty hostile argument, my mom left for work and my dad was pretty pent up. This is what I remember, and continue to remember almost every day since the event. My dad took one of those large, heavy-duty trash bags out of his parents' kitchen, dragged me into the living room of the attic, stuffed me in the bag, and tied it after letting out some air. I remember being terrified, too scared to act out of fear of getting hit or yelled at. I waited till I heard him close the attic door, then proceeded to use my fingers to claw a hole through the trash bag. I remember it taking a while, since I wasn't that strong at the time due to malnourishment and well, my age, but I eventually made it out and laid on the floor just waiting for my mom to get home. I'd kill if she knows what happened, if she just thought I was playing with a trash bag or what, but that's what I remember and I've been carrying it for years. Thankfully she eventually left the dirt bag and I can now happily say I have an amazing father who I love very much. So this story does have a happy ending. Thanks for reading my little vent. I'm kinda terrified to post this, but getting it out finally will do me some good. Last Christmas I leaned my sister and I don't have the same father and are technically half sisters. My sister's biological father tried to start a relationship with my mom that resulted in a pregnancy and ultimately didn't work out. That biological father is dead now, but I didn't probe any further about his identity or how he died in case it was something traumatic for my mum to remember. So she raised my sister as a single mother at my grandma's house in the 80s, then she met my father and they started dating and it worked out because they got married in the 90s, moved into a new house, and a short time after that I was born. She told me never call my sister my half-sister and just pretend all of this doesn't matter because she's my sister and I'm keeping it that way, and if anyone asks about the 10-year age gap I just tell them it's a long story. My sister is technically a half-sister as well, but the way we grew up she is 100% my sister and neither of us ever uses the word half when referring to the other. I'm the spitting image of my grandpa on my dad's side. Both my parents are almost a foot shorter than me, but I'm almost the same height as him. When my mother got sick when I was a kid, my grandpa went to visit her daily for extended periods of time in the hospital. In his final months, she did the same. After he passed, we found out he kept a whole other family on the side in secret too. Looking back at my dad's military deployment history, it would also be dicey if she could have gotten pregnant by him around the appropriate time. Based on a collection of various hunches, I'm fairly convinced I'm the product of an affair between my mother and supposed grandfather. More disturbingly, this would probably be one of the most light-hearted revelations about my family. So your dad is actually your half-sibling? Illy. When I was 16, I conspired with a heroin addict I met online to help me off myself with heroin and dumped my body in a dumpster in exchange for my valuables. I lived in a small town and he was in a bigger city where my school had an upcoming trip. We planned for me to slip away during the trip and meet up with him to do the deed. He chickened out last minute and ghosted me. I don't think he chickened out. He probably never believed the plan was serious. Yeah, you're probably right. Even if he chickened out, I don't blame him. Like, most people aren't willing to actively kill another person, and even if he was, I'm sure a potential murder charge doesn't sound appealing. Please like and subscribe for daily content. I love you. When I was young, probably around age 9 or 10, I was walking home with my dog from a house around the block when he cut the corner and walked diagonally through the yard of this super mean old lady who lived at the end of your street. She was in her yard at the time tending to these really fancy looking rose bushes she had growing in beds along the border with her neighbor. My dog was a very friendly golden retriever who didn't even really come near her and certainly didn't do anything threatening, but she sprayed the fuck out of him with some kind of insecticide or other chemical she was using on her roses. I ran back home with the dog and hosed him off. He coughed a bunch, but seemed otherwise fine. I didn't tell my parents because somehow I thought I was going to get into trouble for letting the dog walk in her yard. I'm glad I didn't tell them, though, because I decided that night to sneak downstairs, out the half-bath window, and down the street to her yard where I cut down every goddamn rose bush I could get my hands on. I'm convinced a neighbor poisoned our family dog. We got her when I was in 2nd grade, the poisoning happened when I was in college. They left notes on our door threatening to hurt the dog if she shit in their yard again, but our dog never went to their yard. Anyhow, she fell very ill very fast. She was in intense pain from her insides. She'd let out screams in pain. I don't know if you have ever heard a dog scream, that's the best I can describe it. It wasn't a cry, howl, or bark, it was a haunting scream. She couldn't get comfortable. I'd hold her to try to comfort her and she'd be okay for a few seconds and then another scream. We had to put her down. It was the only humane thing to do. I was devastated, it was like losing a sibling. It still hurts, and this was almost 20 years ago. Not long after that, our area had a natural disaster. The whole city was flooded. We moved back in pretty quickly. BC. My dad was a carpenter, but most people took longer to return, including that neighbor. Let's just say, every snake, reptile, rat, or any other nasty creature that my crazy dad came across, and there was a lot due to the disaster, was brought straight to their yard and inside their house. For months. I smile to imagine the house of horrors that they returned to. It still wasn't enough though. In another world I'd love to burn them inside their house. But alas, civilization. I make up lies about what I do on the weekend. Usually I don't do much and I'm very content with that. Others are always asking me what I'm doing and I never had anything to tell them. I make up lies to get out of phone calls, or plans. Saying I'm out of town or with friends. I love just being left alone. When I was a teenager, I worked at a novelty tourist shop near me. Being the idiot that I was, I stole a wad of cash from the store. It was $100 in ones. I told nobody, but they knew it was missing. Right about the same time, a coworker who was always trying to get me fired was telling someone she got about $100 in tips from her other job. They ended up firing her because they didn't trust that it wasn't her. Not super duck, but mine is also stealing from my employer. It was a seasonal job and they told people if you came back next season you'd get a raise. Next season I got a 50-cent per hour raise and mentioned it to a couple other people who had also returned, who it turned out didn't get a raise. They went and complained to the boss, who then took my raise back and gave them each 25-cent raises. I argued with the boss for a bit but eventually just decided I'd steal a few bucks per shift to make up the difference.